Shana Tova, Chatima Tova. So just a few minutes ago, we had the pleasure to listen to Jenny sing Kol Nidrei and to listen to David's instrumental rendition of the song. And Kol Nidrei has been a core part of the Erev Yom Kippur, of the Yom Kippur evening liturgy for many of us. But Kol Nidrei has a very unique history, and I want to say a few words about that, because then you will understand that there are a few problems with Kol Nidrei. So first, let's have a look at the English translation, the literal translation of the text, which is, by the way, in Aramaic. This is, Kol Nidrei is a legal formula. It's not even a prayer. It's a purely legal text that was written in Aramaic. And it says as follows: all vows, prohibitions, oaths, consecrations, etc., they are undone, abandoned, cancelled, nullified, etc. So basically, Kol Nidrei declares that all the vows we made in the previous year and all the vows we're going to make in the next year are nullified. I assume I'm not the only one in this room who finds this text problematic. I mean, does this mean that we should not trust each other? Does this mean that non-Jews are not supposed to trust us, since we are nullifying our vows? We declare it in community, in public. Now, if we have a look at the origin and the history of Kol Nidrei, that might help us understand how this legal formula came to existence and what it meant for our ancestors. So we don't know exactly when Kol Nidrei was written or first written down. Obviously, it evolved throughout the centuries. Well, we know for sure that it already existed in the early Middle Ages. And there is a theory that Kol Nidrei was written during a time of persecution when many Jews were forced to convert either to Christianity or to Islam. And Kol Nidrei was meant to nullify forced conversions. There is another aspect to the origin story of Kol Nidrei, which is the halachic concept of Hatarat Nedarim, that we can translate as annulment of vows. Neder in Hebrew means vows. Some of you might know the expression bli neder, which means, don't take that too serious what I just said. That expression comes from the same term as nedarim, hatarat nedarim, or even Kol Nidrei. So hatarat nedarim is a halachic concept which you can also find in the Talmud, that says that each year on Rosh Hashanah, you can nullify vows you made and you cannot fulfill in the presence of a Beit Din. That means in the presence of, well, it depends how you define Beit Din, but often it's defined as in the presence of a rabbinic court. Okay, now, but even this halachic notion of Hatarat Nedarim is actually disputed among the rabbis, and there are rabbis who say that this whole tractate, the whole tractate Nedarim in the Talmud, should not be studied because many people misunderstand it or abuse this opportunity of annulment of vows. And as you might have heard or guessed by now, Kol Nidrei has been abused by anti-Semites as a basis for asserting that vows taken by Jews should not be trusted throughout the Middle Ages and even after that. And besides, the rabbis were not so convinced of Kol Nidrei either, and there are actually attempts already in the 10th century to abolish Kol Nidrei, because the rabbis had the impression that many Jews are using Kol Nidrei too extensively. And then after the Haskalah, after the Jewish Enlightenment and the Reform Jewish movement emerged in Central Europe, the first Reform Jewish congregations in various German states actually abolished Kol Nidrei, And since the beginning of the 1800s, we can find Sidurim or Machzorim without Kol Nidrei. It's also interesting that there were attempts also among the neo-Orthodox Jewish movement or groups in Germany, most notably by Rabbi Samson Raphael Hirsch in Frankfurt, to abolish Kol Nidrei. In some of these communities, they would still play the music, the tune of Kol Nidrei. And then we have Mordechai Kaplan, and in the Society for Advancement of Judaism, which was, as you know, the first Reconstructionist synagogue. In the 1920s, Kaplan and the SAJ actually swept the text for the Kol Nidrei, so they did keep the melody, but instead of this problematic legal formula, they were using the text of Psalm 130. This is one of the penitential psalms. Later on, the Reconstructionist movement returned to Kol Nidrei, just like the Reform movement. And since the 1960s, most, if not all, major Machzorim include the Kol Nidrei. So I'm wondering, why do we keep saying Kol Nidrei? I assume that many of us agree with me that the text is difficult and that we do not really want to nullify our vows if we make any vows. I have a theory, but I also want to hear what you have to say. I do believe that the very fact itself that even in those communities where they abolished the text or swept the text with something different, they kept the melody, they kept the tune. And that makes me think that the reason why we are still saying Kol Nidrei is actually not the text, but the tune, the melody. It's a beautiful tune that perfectly suits the message of Yom Kippur. It's serious and sad. Maybe there is some optimism to it since we sing it 3 times or we listen to it 3 times, and there is always a new beginning. It's always stronger and louder and more powerful. So I guess that we love this prayer, or we love this legal formula, not because of the text, not because of the rational part of Kol Nidrei, but because of the irrational part, because of the melody and because of all the emotions that melody awakes in us. But this is only my explanation, and I would really love to hear what you all think. So feel free to type that in the chat box or unmute yourself. And thank you for listening. Gmar Chatima Tova to you all, and Shana Tova.